We're talking about developments and advancements in the DeFi space with an expert on regulations, cryptos, and DeFi. His name is Ben Samaroo. He is the CEO of WonderFi, a new startup project focusing on the DeFi space. We'll be talking about Ben's new project and a startup and all things DeFi. Ben, welcome to the show. It's your first time. I'm glad to host you.
It's great to be here.
Ben, before we get started on your project, I want to talk about one of the largest hacks, bank heists ever, not just in the crypto space, but in any space of finance. This is up there with some of the biggest heists in history. $600 million was stolen from the Poly network. And I'm just going to share this headline from CNBC. More than $600 million worth of crypto was stolen in a cyber attack that targeted a decentralized finance, a DeFi platform called the Poly network. Now, the hacker, we haven't identified who the hacker is yet, but it's reportedly it's reported that he returned half of that already because he, quote unquote, did it for fun. So before we get into the incentives and the motivations, talk to us about this heist in just a layman 30,000 foot perspective. What is Poly Network and how is it that this was possible? $600 million is a large sum of money.
So I'll start with Poly. So Poly is a cross-chain network. So just from a 30,000 foot view, it's a very advanced part of DeFi. It allows you to work across multiple chains and multiple smart contracts with multiple tokens. So for your average user, entry-level user, really not something that's important. But as you get into these more complex networks, the risk for hacks and exploits increases really exponentially because there are more smart contracts that are utilized. And so really the whole principle of DeFi is you're using a smart contract to carry out these functions that a financial institution would usually do. And so it's great because you remove the middleman and everything's in this code, but it's a double-edged sword because if there's any issues with the code, it can be exploited.
Okay, so exploited. How is it that this was exploited?
So it still remains to be seen exactly where the exploit is, but with something like Poly and other more complex platforms within DeFi, there are multiple smart contracts that are being called and used whenever a transaction is executed, and everything's public. So if there's an issue or vulnerability with the code, it's visible to everyone. So you have opportunists and hackers that are really looking for those issues. So really, all those funds are sitting within the smart contract, and there's kind of like an open door that's left. And so this hacker was able to identify that and capitalize on it.
Well, $600 million is a large amount of money. So I mean, that's that. So would you say then that this level of complexity, this more advanced system, is being utilized on a broader basis right now? It's really picking up steam in the last 7 months or so.
Yeah, you're right. So it's picking up steam, and it's really within the DeFi and crypto community. So it is these power users and sort of advanced users that are,
the institutions. When we say advanced users, who are these people, by the way?
Not necessarily institutions. It's a lot of traders. Institutions makes up a part of that, but it's really sort of crypto traders and experts that are utilizing these kind of more advanced platforms. So when as you're seeing new platforms and functionality within DeFi come out, again, it's sort of compounding. It's often compounding the risks because you have new platforms that aren't tested, haven't necessarily undergone these security audits, which are basically just audits of the smart contracts to make sure there aren't any vulnerabilities. And that's really creating a lot of additional exposure points for hacks like this. And that's why you're seeing more hacks in the DeFi space and kind of focused on this space in particular.
Okay, so let's talk about the incentive here. Now, this hacker claimed he did it for fun. He claimed that he or she, we don't know who it is yet. The hacker hasn't been identified, but they claim to have done it just to raise awareness of the fact that there was a vulnerability in Poly's code. So let's say, white knight hacking aside, let's say there was a malicious hacker who actually wanted to take all the money for himself. Why would he specifically target Poly?
So it comes down to the fact that it is a cross-chain network, and there are more exposure points for a hacker. And so if you look at more sort of streamlined or simplified protocols, Compound is a good example, one that a lot of people are familiar with. It's been around for a long time. It's not something that involves the level of complexity that Poly has, and it's undergone extensive security audits, and they really prioritize testing and documentation and all of that. So as a hacker, you're going to look at something like Poly versus something like Compound and see a lot of additional exposure points, and so it makes it just a much better target for an opportunist like that.
This raises the broader question of security in DeFi. I'm just going to share this Reuters article. DeFi crime hits record high in the first 7 months of 2021. In particular, I want to highlight this paragraph here. It says DeFi applications, many of which run on the Ethereum blockchain, are financial platforms that enable crypto-denominated lending outside of traditional banks. And it says the DeFi sector, on the other hand, registered criminal losses of a record $474 million from January to July. So DeFi hacks are really picking up this year. You've mentioned, you've already talked about some of the reasons as to why, but what can the DeFi community do to enhance security in this space?
So it comes down to security and then education as well. So on the security side, it is these smart contract audits, which, as I mentioned before, it's really looking at the smart contracts from a technical perspective, having an independent firm do that and ensure there aren't any vulnerabilities before, millions and billions of dollars of user funds are flowing through them. So it's these audits, testing, and really, there's some sort of governance aspects as well that can help to increase security in the space. And the education piece is also important because you don't want somebody who's a first-time user, like your parents or something like that, who are getting their first exposure into DeFi and going into something that's incredibly complex, like cross-chain swaps. The security aside, the chances that something's going to go wrong and they're going to lose their money, maybe even just from user error, are probably pretty high.
Right.
So I think education is important, and it's a challenge in the crypto and the DeFi space because it's a bit insular, and so you really have these people that have so much knowledge and experience and are really kind of using all these very advanced tools, but lose the perspective of what somebody who's an entry-level user would care about or should really be able to access just from a knowledge and risk perspective.
Let's say I'm an entry-level user of DeFi and I want to get into the space and I want to invest in this space, but I don't know where to go. And now that I'm reading the story, I'm really, starting to get worried because I don't want my money to get hacked. So what are some of the criteria that I need to be looking for before I pick a project to invest in?
I think it all comes down to usage on that project and auditing and testing that has occurred. So for something like Compound, I've mentioned it a couple of times. It's been around since 2018. You can go to their website and read about the security audits and protocols that they have in place to ensure that issues like this don't occur.
Security audit, what is that? Can you briefly describe how that works and where we can access this information?
Yeah, for sure. So the security audit, it's one component of that, as I mentioned, is a smart contract audit. So it's really having an independent firm, look at and evaluate the code that's carrying out all this functionality. And so you can find that information on, with Compound, for example, on their website, and it's front and center there. I think a lot of players in the community, do see the importance of security and governance, and so it's definitely being prioritized by some of the leaders in the space. So you'll be able to view that information on the website.
Can you give us maybe one or two examples of projects that you think are prone to being hacked right now, maybe because they're missing some of these audit features?
I don't necessarily want to call out any projects in particular. I think
maybe just the common characteristics that they have.
Common characteristics. I think if it's a new project, then it's all relative. But if it's new in the last year or so, I think it's It's something that I probably wouldn't recommend that a new user get into, because there hasn't been the level of testing, and then also just the sort of gut check of like, does this make sense? So I think there's a lot of really advanced stuff within DeFi. So you're going to go on and read all this like crazy jargon, and if you can't understand it, probably best not to use it.
Okay. Let's talk about regulations real quick. I had Max Kaiser on the show this week, and he said that altcoins are all going to get shut down by regulators, SEC, CFTC, whatever have you, in the United States, because he thinks that all these altcoins are unregulated securities. Now, you've worked in the legal side of securities and brokerages, so can you comment on this? Does that statement that he made have any validity?
I think there is a lot of validity to that. I've been in the crypto space since 2016, and my background is as a securities lawyer. So I've been involved with a lot of projects in the space, and have engaged with the regulators a lot. And really, whether you're in Canada or the U.S. or wherever you are, it all comes down to these common criteria of is this token a security? And so I think we see these waves within crypto. We saw it in 2017. We're seeing it again now, where there's a flock of new players into the space that don't have the background and context of like what's happened and what's been going on and what the reality is. So I think they sort of come in with almost a blind eye, where they don't think regulation is going to apply. But we see it time and time again. Regulation does have a space within crypto and within DeFi. And so I would tend to agree with Max to say projects that are just getting launched as ICOs or tokens run a high risk of facing regulation. Okay,
so Ben, let's do some role playing here. I think this will be very helpful to some of the investors out there who are looking into altcoins, especially the newer coins are popping up, ICOs, whatever have you. There's a lot of them out there, thousands of coins. Now, let's say I say to you, hey Ben, I am starting my own new coin for a project. I haven't specified for what kind of project, but it's called the David Lin coin. It's going to go to the moon. We've got some celebrities backing it up already, and it's a lot of hype, a lot of media traction. I'm posting on my Twitter. It's a lot of people are following the coin, so I think you should jump on the bandwagon as well. What questions would you ask me right away? What are some of the red flags that potentially would pop up in your head that you need to address with me?
First question I would ask is, what is the coin? What does it do? Why do we need it?
Okay. All right. Okay.
So I don't know if you can answer that or not.
Let's. It's in. Look, it's an altcoin. You can stake it. You can earn an interest on it. I'm not going to tell you exactly how the mechanics work, but you'll get your interest at the end of a staking period. So it's really cool.
Okay. No, that's great. And second question I would ask is, how are you selling the coin? Is there, a big token sale where you're raising a bunch of funds from investors, or what does that look like?
It's a good question. I don't know yet. We're going to do a big airdrop, but again, I can't give you specifics. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So really, those two questions are super important. But finding out what the coin does, and if the group is raising money from a sale of those funds,
interesting.
Those are really at the crux of what the regulators are going to look at.
Is it important to you how much I've already pre-mined for myself?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's a really good.
I own 90% of it right now. I can tell you that. Yes. But look, most startup owners of anything, they own the majority stakeholder of their company anyway. I would argue that doesn't negate or that doesn't disqualify my coin as being legitimate. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think what a lot of these sort of the fringe coins do is they structure it in that way, but then they sell it and don't want to treat it as a security. So, securities laws exist for a reason, because you're bringing in investors with an expectation of profit, and they need to have, certain information and protections that apply. And so when you use the same structure with a coin, but then don't have those protections in place, and then you're just, selling it to whoever wants to take it, that's when the regulators get involved. And we've seen it time and time again with the SEC, with the Canadian regulators, you name it.
let's talk finally about your project, WonderFi. I'm just going to pull up your website now. So you have launched this project, and your core team, basically your mission is to educate. Could I say that? Educate the general public about DeFi. Is that more or less your mission statement? Help us out here.
Yeah, for sure. So the mission really is education and bringing decentralized finance to the masses. So the big problem that we see as a team is that the space is very fragmented and it's very complicated. I think anybody that spends a few minutes researching DeFi can probably agree with that. There's a really steep learning curve and a ton of obstacles for anyone that wants to get involved. And so with WonderFi, the platform that we're creating is a gateway to this new financial system, and it's really focused on leveling the playing field and making this accessible to everyone.
The platform hasn't launched yet, so it's going to be an app, if I understand correctly. Walk us through the interface here. What can users expect?
Yeah,
like a
correct.
search engine?
It's going to be. So it's an app. It'll be on iOS and Android, and there'll be a web app as well. But basically, it's going to allow you to access all the best parts of DeFi. So you can go on, buy assets, and you'll get routed to whatever the most efficient, economical, decentralized exchanges. You can earn interest on your assets, and you really kind of access all of the best functionality within DeFi without having to go through the extensive process of researching and vetting. So you can think of it as a curated platform for the most attractive opportunities within DeFi.
You told me offline you are targeting not just the advanced users, but also the novice investors, people who don't know much about cryptocurrencies or DeFi. My mother knows absolutely nothing about DeFi. So let's say I give her your app. What can she? What's the next step for her? So what is she gonna be looking up here? How is she gonna be using this interface?
So she's actually our target user rather than the advanced user. I think what we see basically is existing platforms in the DeFi space really are targeting these crypto experts, and there's nothing to serve somebody like your mother, and so that's where we're focused. So going on, she can buy assets with her credit card. So if she wants to just buy some USDC or buy some ETH,
she wouldn't even know where to start. She doesn't even know what DeFi is. So I'm giving her those apps to be like, David, what is this? What is DeFi? I have $10,000. What do I buy? What's my next step? Help her out here.
Yeah. So, basically there's an onboarding flow to help sort of educate the user around, what this is and why it matters. Okay. And really that's the important part about DeFi and crypto that's lost, I think, with a lot of stuff in the space is like, why does this matter? What's the value behind this? So it's just going to help to explain, what this is and what the opportunity is, and then allow her to, if there's interest, then allow her to execute on that in a couple of clicks.
Excellent. And when can we expect to see this launch?
We'll be launching the app in Q3 this year.
Excellent. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming to the show, and we'll follow up with you next time and talk more about your product once it launches. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for your time.
And thank you for watching Kitco News. I'm David Lin. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter at DavidLin_TV.